name is Georgia Vrakas, and welcome to my podcast, Mad Poetry, Mental Illness Reimagined. I'm a clinical psychologist, I'm an academic, and I'm also a woman living with bipolar disorder since she was 23. So this podcast is about destigmatizing mental illness and humanizing the people living with it through poetry, lived experience, and clinical expertise. My areas of expertise are mental illness, including severe mental illness, mental health, and suicide prevention. And I also write poetry around these same themes using my experience as a bipolar woman, a clinician, and an academic. So today's episode is entitled Missing the High. Now, this is specifically about people who have bipolar disorder. And before we get into the details, I'd like to tell you some information about bipolar disorder. That there are around 40 million people on this planet that suffer from bipolar disorder. There are obviously important problems associated to having a bipolar disorder, including a reduced life expectancy by 13 years if it's left untreated. That's very important to keep in mind. Second, the suicide rates are they're higher than the average population. The risk of suicide among people with bipolar disorder is more than 20 to 30 times higher than the general population. So as you can see, we're talking today about issues that relate to suicide prevention and mental illness. So this is a trigger warning for the rest of the episode. Obviously, it will be focused on these issues. If you need to talk, if you'd like to talk to people either through the internet or the telephone, I put several mental health resources on the cover of my podcast, so the cover page, as well as the description of this particular episode. So if we go on about bipolar disorder and what it is specifically, there's two main types of bipolar disorder, according to the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, which is sort of the Bible of psychiatrists in North America. And the first one is bipolar 1. Second one, bipolar 2. What these two have in common is that the high part. For bipolar type 1, it's called a mania. So a person has a manic episode, which lasts at least 7 days, if not more, obviously. It is marked by a distinct period of elevated, expansive, or irritable mood with increased activity or energy. So the person's really feeling, self-esteem is high, they feel like they can do anything, they feel productive, etc. So, and it's pretty intense. In bipolar type 2, it's called hypomania because it is lesser than mania, meaning the intensity is lower and it lasts less long usually. In bipolar type 2, you absolutely also have to have had a depressive episode. Whereas for bipolar type 1, the depressive episode is not necessary to have the diagnosis. If you recognize yourself in some of these symptoms I'm describing, and you're not sure what's going on, I urge you to please contact your medical professional, your mental health professional or your psychiatrist to find out, to talk about it more with them and see what it is that's going on. So if I go into more, why would someone miss the highs of a disorder that's very difficult to live with, that causes a lot of pain to oneself and to one's family? The highs are you feel like you're great. Like if I talk about myself here, during the last year before my diagnosis, it was during COVID, and it's when I had I would say the most important hypomanic episode of my life. I was extremely productive, working on tons and tons and tons of projects. I was I was teaching, as I told you, I'm an academic. I had my private practice, so I was helping clients. I also had a helpline. I was working on a helpline for Canadians to get them through COVID, people who needed to talk. I gave many conferences on how to get through COVID, how to preserve your mental health, how to reduce anxiety during COVID. I even wrote weekly column as a volunteer in the local newspaper to help people who didn't have access to mental health professionals during this difficult time, to help them through this crisis we're all going through, so they can work on find ways to get through it by reducing their anxiety, increasing their well-being, etc. So which is quite ironic, obviously, because I myself was enduring living through an episode of hypomania, and I didn't know it. And I felt completely alive. I felt productive. I felt high self-esteem, like you wouldn't believe. I was also very creative. I was painting a lot, in my free time. So I would paint some more. And finally, the last thing that I did that was really out of character for me was after watching a documentary on Netflix about different types of sports around the world. And one of them was roller derby in the US. And I'm watching this and I'm thinking, this is what I have to do. This is what I must do. I'm going to meet new people. Even though it was COVID, so, the odds of meeting people were very slim. I was convinced. My then boyfriend was very skeptical, and he told me so. And he's like, I don't think this is a good idea. Of course, I brushed him aside. I said, I know, I could do it. I spent money on all the gear that I needed, protective gear, outfits, the roller skates, etc. And then I found myself like, okay, I have to, there was a league in Quebec City where I was living. And my boyfriend at the time tells me, Georgia, what are you going to do? You don't know how to skate. And he was right. I did not know how to skate, but that did not stop me from learning how to skate to prepare myself for this roller derby. So, he became my, let's say, involuntary skating instructor, because I really wanted to learn how to skate and be a roller derby lady, So that's to give you an example as how out of character this was for me. This is not something today that I would do. And I was trying to help all these people, and I wasn't able to see that there was something off about me. I just thought I was normal. I was finally normal. I wasn't depressed anymore. I was normal, but I wasn't exactly normal. I was a few steps higher up than normal. I was in a hypomanic episode. So we can wonder, you can say, well, okay, fine. Or you did a lot of things, right? It was during that time, but you ended up crashing and burning, which is what happened, obviously. And also, beyond the crashing and burning, during the time that I was on a hypomanic episode, I was doing stuff, but not doing it well. Like, I was working on many projects with people, but I wasn't able to finish any of them. So to this day, I feel embarrassed, ashamed that I let down colleagues, because at the time I thought I could do it all, and I couldn't do it all. So, people might ask me, well, what do you miss about that what do you miss about this? What do you miss about the highs? The thing is, it's hard to explain. I can only talk about myself, and I don't want to generalize, but in my case, when you're low, you want to be high, because during the highs, that's when you felt like your self-esteem was great, you were confident, you could do many, many things, and you don't see like all the bad stuff associated to being in a hypomanic episode or a manic episode. You don't see it. You just see the good stuff because you're so low that you're like anything but this. And then when you're on your high, well, things are so great, seemingly great for you. You don't want that to end, even though your family and your friends are watching you do things that you don't usually do. For example, spending money you don't have, working 18-hour days, etc. So, and you're hurting the people around you, but you don't see that. And so there's that sort of contrast, that contradictory, needs that you can have. Like, I need to be in that high position again because I felt so good, but I know that I don't want to be in that position because I know I can not only hurt me, but I can hurt my loved ones. And of course, when you're in the depression, well, then you miss just the good parts of the manic or hypomanic episode. It's very complex. It's a very complex situation when you go through this type of disorder, the highs and the lows and the lows and the highs, and the those little good parts. And so now I'm going to read to you a poem I wrote on this exact topic, on missing the highs, on feeling mad. It's entitled Madness. So, Madness, I wrote it in 2023. Riding the wave, feeling energized, my mind is racing, trying to catch up with me. Ideas and thoughts from the past and from the future collide into today. My body feels nothing. I feel nothing. I poke and prod it. I stroke it. I scratch it. I bite it. I look at this picture, this person, and she's not me, but I'm her. Today I'm her. I tried silencing her with med after med after med. Blue pills, yellow pills, pink pills. Every day, every second day, every third day. Today, my mind races. I tried silencing her, but she is still laughing out loud. I feel the ravages she leaves behind, but not today. Today, I ride the wave where she takes me. So here I talk also about the ravages, right, that come along with being either in a high or a low, especially a high in this case. So it's that contradictory, that I don't want to, I want to, I don't want to, I want to, because I know that the high is as dangerous as the low. Both episodes, they can hurt you. Whether the first one looks, happy and joyful, it comes with a heavy price. And when you're down, there's another price that comes in, which is a really heavy depression, suicidal ideation, attempts, etc. So, well, this brings me to the mood stabilizers, medication that helps you maintain your mood, stabilize your mood, so you can feel less intense highs and less intense lows, or maybe not feel them at all in certain cases, depending on each person is different. I am personally on lithium, which is a mood stabilizer, and along with many other medications, and it has helped me a lot. It has helped me, stabilize my mood and overall have a better quality of life. Where I question how we see mental illness, and especially severe mental illness in our society, being treated with medications, which is extremely important and extremely necessary to maintain, quality of life and a good prognostic for the rest. It isn't only about pills. Medications can reduce your symptoms by a lot even, and make you feel better. But if you look at recovery only based on symptom reduction or symptom disappearance, for the people for whom that does not happen, you don't give them hope that things can get better, because they're going to be like, how come I'm taking all my meds and I changed meds and I took new meds but I'm still, have ups and downs, and then nothing much has changed or has changed very little. And I'm really unhappy because I was told, that this is super important to take my medication, which it is. But I think recovery has to be seen as much larger, much bigger than just reducing symptoms or eliminating them completely. It has to be about reconstructing oneself, one's identity after getting the diagnosis, or including the diagnosis within them. Like for me, I define myself as bipolar, among other things, of course, but it's part of me. For others, it is not. For others, it's just, it's an illness that's there, and it's not part of who they are, and that is completely fine. This is why recovery is a very personal journey. It's different for each person. So reconstructing your identity, rebuilding your life is extremely important. And this can be helped by mental health professionals such as psychologists, social workers, even psychiatrists or family doctors. It's just support to help you go through this. And psychotherapy can also be extremely important and useful, I mean. So it's about redefining yourself. And I can tell you about me that ever since I got back to work after a sick leave, since then, I've been working on redefining myself as a academic, as a professor, as a clinician, as a wife, as a sister, because there's a lot of things have changed. Obviously, once you have diagnosis of this type, you perceive yourself differently. Maybe other people perceive you differently, as we know. And of course, if we look further in society, I mean, there's like stigmatization, dehumanization of people who have a mental illness. So it's about like rebuilding those parts of you and making sense of them, and bringing a new sense, meaning to your life. I'm lucky, I've said this before, I have a wonderful family doctor, I have a wonderful psychologist, I have a wonderful psychiatrist. So I have, what I need to move forward and in my recovery, which is, and this is important to say, recovery is a work in progress. It's ongoing. For me, this is how I see it. It's not going to be like, oh, by next week I should be recovered. It's deeper than that. It's redefining, reconstructing, making sense of things, redefining once again. It's a sort of process that keeps building through time. It of course involves taking your medication. I am happy that I'm lucky. I'm happy that I have like the good mix of meds that work for me. But there's that whole other part that's not pharmaceutical, that's more psychosocial, more psychological, that also I'm working on to move forward. So I'm really lucky, I admit, to have all these, and not everybody has this luck. And I really hope that these types of services are going to be made more available to people. Another thing that helps me, and you may have guessed, is that poetry. I write poetry. I've been writing poetry for maybe the past 2-3 years, and it helps me express what I'm feeling, what I'm going through by putting, pen to paper. It helps me give meaning to things. It also helps me take a step back and look at the bigger picture. So that brings me to the end of this episode, Missing the High. I'd like to remind people that are listening to, if you need help, there's information on my podcast description about where you can go or who you can call or what internet site you can go to get information. I would like to thank the listeners for making me feel privileged to listen to my poetry and to be part of this show and listening to it. So I would like to wish you to say take care of yourself until next time, where we will talk some more about mental health, mental illness, and madness through poetry and lived in clinical experience. If you have any questions for me, please do not hesitate to send me a message either through Instagram or by Gmail. My information, once again, is on the description of my podcast. So thank you again. See you.